everybody, and welcome. My name is Dr. Mary Pellicer, and I am the Medical Director for Applied Research for ISPS, the Institute for the Study of Peak States. I am here with Karen Haworth from England, who is one of our Institute certified therapists. So welcome, Karen. Thank you for agreeing to come on and have this little chat with me.
Thank you, Mary. I'm very happy to be here.
Lovely. Karen, why don't you go ahead and start out telling me about how you got involved with the Institute, and yeah, why don't we start right there.
Okay. So I was, before I started doing the training with the Institute, I was running a meditation group and seeing clients, and I noticed that there were places in my clients that I felt like I'm not quite sure how to deal with that, or I know that there's a better way to deal with this situation. So I contacted Naomi Nath, who is the Director of Training in the Institute. I did my rebirth training with Naomi about 20 years ago, so that we've got a really good relationship. And through talking with Naomi, I realised that my next step was to actually do the training with her, which I made that decision, and I did the Peak States training. That was one of the best decisions that I've ever made, and now that I can say that, you know, when I have a client now, I feel that I can deal with whatever situations presented with both in my client and in myself. Whilst I was doing my training, I always knew in myself it was like this sense of a part of me that feels like that doesn't work properly in my brain as compared to other people around me. And
so let me just interrupt there, Karen. So you've had this sense all your life?
Most of my life, yeah.
Okay.
I can remember. I always felt different to other people, and I always had this sense that, you know, there was something wrong with me, or something didn't quite work properly.
Were you aware of having a traumatic brain injury at some point? Was there a memory of that, or?
I did have an injury early in childhood. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I always
those two things. The problem.
Yeah, I always suspected.
Okay.
That had done some damage, but I'd not, you know, never been to the doctors or had that medically looked at, you know, in any way. And through doing the training with Naomi, I knew that the Institute had a brain repair process, as that's what it was called back then. And I asked Naomi, you know, if I could do that process with her, and, you know, we agreed, you know, we both agreed to do that. And
so let me stop you right there again, Karen.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is ask you about before you did the process.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about, you've said you had this injury early in childhood, in the sense that quite right in your brain, but go into more depth about what kind of problems were you having? How did this sense that there was something in your brain not quite working right, how did that impact your day-to-day life and how you were able to function?
Okay, so one of the biggest things that it impacted on my day-to-day life was organisational skills. I'd find it really difficult to physically around me, you know, like sort of you keep things tidy and put things in a place. And it used to cause a lot of arguments with my partner, because he couldn't understand, you know, why that was a problem, or why I would why I would do that. And the other places that it affected me was my speech. That, like I said, I had my own business and I was wanting to, speak more, and because I know I've got a lot of skills and knowledge about personal growth and spiritual and development work, and I wanted to start talking about that, doing videos. And it was always a struggle, always a struggle for me to access information that I know that's stored in my brain. And I used to have a lot of pause where I'd think, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that. And then I sort of say a sentence and then have a really long pause. And it was like I was trying to run around in my head to find the right information that I was looking for. Like, I knew that it was there. I knew what I was talking about, and that was really frustrating for me, because I knew that I wanted to step out and offer my gifts and talents that I have, and I felt really stuck in a way, and I'm frustrated that I couldn't move forward. I think doing everyday, I'm just trying to think back, like doing everyday kind of tasks, I think sometimes would take, a lot of thought, even simple things like, cooking a meal. Sometimes I would struggle, with steps, something that you've got to take steps or work through or process information.
That sense of sequencing things.
Thank you. Yeah, sequencing. Yeah, I really struggle with that. And the other thing that really changed after I'd done the process with NAMI was that I wasn't as tired at the end of the day. Like, before it would get to 8:30, 9 o'clock, and it was as if that my whole brain would go into some kind of meltdown, and that was it. I couldn't do the simplest tasks. And in fact, I remember that used to happen quite frequently to me on a day-to-day basis, where I literally wouldn't be able to think or process, or I'd have to stop what I was doing. And you forget once you've healed that, and you've moved on. But I just remembering that, and yeah, those things still happen to me. Like sometimes it gets to 9 o'clock and I've had enough, and I need to go to bed. Don't get me wrong, but my energy in the evening is very different after I did that round with NAMI. And yeah, I still have those days, like we all do, where you're doing something and it's just like, oh, I just can't do that. Obviously, that still happens, and I think it's something that happens to everybody. But what I'm saying is, it used to happen on too much of a regular kind of basis.
A daily basis.
Yeah.
So now you've snuck ahead of me and given people are interested. So something has changed here. But before we get to the process and what happened afterwards, the other question I want to ask you, Karen, is, had you reached out for help or tried to do anything else for these issues you told us about? You told us about the problems with physical organization.
Oh, yeah, with the tidying up. Yeah, I tried to, because, as I said, I did my rebirth training with NAMI 20 years ago. And, it was in that training that you first get the dawning that what happens to you on the outside is actually a reflection of the trauma that you have on the inside. And there were some aspects that I think I tried to process away, and they didn't really change for me. Yeah.
Okay. But as you said, nothing really in conventional medicine. You hadn't seen a
No,
doctor.
not conventionally, nothing. No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
no.
And you've already told us how you kind of came upon, after you got involved with the Institute and were trained as a therapist, that you heard about this bringing
Yeah.
care process at the time they were doing. So tell us about, because now I want to hear, you did the process with NAMI, so she took you through the
Correct.
process.
Yeah.
How was it doing the process? Was it simple? Was it difficult? Any things that you remember about the process in general?
Well, the process that I did with NAMI was the one that has been in the Institute for 9 years, and it was then a long process. So I remember that, where me and Naomi both worked on the process, because I'm obviously a therapist. I could do some of the work myself, but I don't remember the actual process being difficult in terms of following instructions and what I needed to do. And I remember afterwards feeling tired. So, and I had to rest.
Okay. And compare and contrast, because now 9 or so years have passed since they began that process, and things have gotten a bit simpler. So now we have the TBI protocol that you and I are using with folks.
Yeah.
Can you compare and contrast those?
Yeah, because as you know, I've done all the processes.
All the newest updates, yeah.
Yes. Every time that there's been the one with NAMI, and then last year I worked with Grant on developing the newer process. So I've done every one of them, and in comparison, the newer one that we're working with is a lot shorter. So it's a lot easier, from that perspective. It's a lot easier to use with a client. Yeah.
So now what I'm waiting for is, after you did the process, and why don't we go all the way to the end? So you've done it multiple times, as the versions have updated and more targeted. But now, after having done the TBI protocol, what's different for you? How has it changed?
Well, I'm able to, keep the house tidy. That's most of the time, obviously. And, we don't have the rows like we used to about, how the house is. And so that's really changed in our relationship. And like I say, sometimes, we can all be untidy unless you're a super natural tidy person. So that's really changed our relationship. But for me personally, I find it a lot more easy to use my speech and, right, I'm going to say this, and there's more of a flow for me. I'm more able to access information that I have in my mind and in my memory. And I would say that my memory's also improved, like since the last rounds we've done. I think my memory has definitely improved. I'm able to sequence, put things in sequence of order, and be able to have more structure in my life, and more organization in my life. That on some level I was organized, like even before I did the process, I had a natural apt for organizing dates. I could do that, but it was like more organizing physical things, where they went and how they went, and having sequences. So that's really changed for me, and able to, I think, cognitively process information more, and I'm a lot more confident with my writing and able to structure writing. I still find it difficult spelling because I have dyslexia as well, and this process does not ease dyslexia. Yeah, but just being able to it's like with the thought process, you can have a thought process, and if that's organized and structured, and it's like my writing is able to reflect that now, where I'm able to put things in a sequential order.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that seems to be becoming more and more easier for me. And the biggest things that's also changed is where I'm starting to feel more capable about using my logical brain, and that I can work things out for myself, where I think I used to rely on other people, you know, for that, like my partner, for example, to maybe work things out that I just sort of put in a too hard basket. And I think when you do that, it affects your confidence. You know, that's what I'm feeling now, that I'm becoming more confident in my own abilities, and that I feel I don't need to rely on other people around me to sort of carry those places that you know, I have struggled with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like baby steps, because obviously for me it's like I've always been like this, because it was quite young when I had the accident. So it is literally like learning to use something that you've not used before. And it's probably different for people who have had an injury in adulthood, when the brain is fully, you know, they can remember what that used to be like, what optimum is like for them. So yeah,
a little bit different that way.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't have that same sense of struggle with everyday tasks that you told
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
That's gone. Yeah. Okay. And what about the tired? That's changed.
Yeah, definitely got. Obviously, there are some evenings that, you know, if I've had a like last week, for example, I had a week of not sleeping properly. So, you know, come the evenings, then I'm tired, but it's not on a regular every night basis.
The last thing, that sense you talked about, Karen, of something not working right in your brain, is that still there at all? Is that?
No.
That's gone.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now this next kind of a loaded question, obviously wondering whether you'd recommend the TBI protocol to someone struggling with TBI symptoms. So tell us about that. And in fact, you kind of went above and beyond just recommending it. Tell me about.
Well, absolutely. As you know, I'm actually a specialised therapist for TBI now, and I've worked with other clients that have got TBI, and the differences that I've seen in those clients have been amazing, to something that it's like what I was trying to explain, is that, you know, something isn't working right, and you carry on with life, and you manage with what you've got, and you learn to compensate and use other parts of yourself, and that becomes then normal in your life. And it's difficult to see, I think, beyond that there can be something that's different, or it can be different. You know, the last client I worked with had, you know, really big transformation, that, you know, he thought he could never regain those skills that he'd lost when he had his last accident 10 years ago. And we've interviewed him as a totally different person in himself, but he's not a different person. He was the person he was before he had that accident. And so I couldn't recommend that enough, really, that if you are really wanting to make those changes and regain some of the symptoms that you have lost through any kind of accident, you know, then don't hesitate to go through this process.
Yes. And for myself as a physician trained in conventional medicine, when I got involved again and became the medical director for the Institute, and Grant was telling me about this process, I can't tell you, Karen, I got so excited, because in conventional medicine, we just don't have very much for people who have traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
There's the rehabilitation and stuff, but it only goes so far. And there's a lot of traumatic brain injury out there. And which is why I got involved, and you and I teamed up and are now working with this TBI Breakthrough Project. So I personally hadn't had traumatic brain injury, but have met a lot of people through my work, and it's heartbreaking to know as a physician, there isn't any surgery. Sometimes medicine has surgery for things, or any pills or anything like that. It's their brain that has had this damage. And yes, we have some rehabilitation, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, sometimes that can help to a certain extent. But when you're telling me about your story, and then the other clients that you've told me about, the change being so quick, over weeks to months process, working on it, it's incredibly fascinating. And I just want to tell you what a joy it is to meet you and work on this project, and hopefully bring this breakthrough to more people with TBI. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And of course, I'll see you around the block, and we'll keep going and find out what happens next.
Thank you, Mary.
Perfect.